Hi, I'm Colin.
And I'm Phil.
We're the hosts of Science Fiction 101.
It's a show which gets to the heart of science fiction. Books, films, TV. We've covered Star Trek,
Doctor Who,
Star Wars.
We love to explore the past, present, and future of science fiction.
And we'd love for you to join us
on Science Fiction 101.
Hello, Colin.
Hi, Phil.
So here we are again, and it is now July 2026. In fact, I think it's the day before your Independence Day.
It is.
What is it, 250th?
It is. It's an odd 250th birthday because members of the family aren't behaving so well these days.
Say no more. We're going to be talking about La Jetée.
Yes.
And I think we're going to be talking about Resurrection. And I think we're going to be talking about the magazine Small Planet.
Yes, from sciencefictionandtranslation.com.
Yes. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. What did you call it? A grab bag, I think.
I called it a grab bag, yeah.
So various things that have just sprung up in our conversation over the last few episodes, but now we're going to give them a little bit more focus. And I believe you may have a quiz.
I do have a quiz, courtesy of Hank Green, the YouTuber, from The SciShow, Complexly.
Oh, I see.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Good. Something we haven't done for a while is have any feedback from listeners. So I've just ploughed through the last few episodes, pulling out some choice quotes from listeners. Mostly these are things that are of informational value, sort of corrections and steering us towards things that we may have missed. Mm-hmm. So first of all, in relation to our episode about science fiction and history being the same thing or not, Kelly wrote, I have an odd related book that I've sort of picked at for years, Robert Silverberg's The Realm of Prester John. Now, is that one that you know, Colin?
No.
No, me neither. He says, it's an actual attempt to track the mythology of the famed, almost assuredly non-existent icon of the Crusades. So it's really a history book. But it's a history book trying to trace a mythological character that many believed was real. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll have to look out for that one. And Kelly also pointed out that at some point we mentioned Nnedi Okorafor in relation to Afrofuturism, and he pointed out that she doesn't consider her work to be Afrofuturism. She prefers the term African futurism, which I think we have mentioned before on the show, but thanks, Kelly, for that correction. And then in response to our episode on Scientifiction 101 and the 100 Years of Amazing Stories magazine, Andy wrote, great episode, laughed so much at the introduction. I think he's the only one who noticed that we did a different intro for that episode. He says, Hugo Gernsback's book is a fun read, but not a great read. Maybe not even a good read, but it's fun. And he then says, I only read it as I wanted to tick Luxembourg off my world sci-fi list.
Oh, so this is not just any old Andy, it's Andy Perry.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And we also, in relation to that same episode, Bob wrote, loved this. I published in Amazing Stories in 1984, my first sale, and the story was illustrated on the cover, but without my name, not being famous enough. So I looked it up, and indeed the cover of the March 1984 issue has an illustration for a novelette that's in the magazine called Palaces of the Mighty, and the story is there, and it is by Robert Morrell Jr., but for some reason they didn't think to mention that his story was in the magazine, so what a shame. Bob's published in a few magazines. He's been in Analog as well, I believe, and various others. And, oh yes, Kelly, again, found that episode, our science-fiction episode, terrific. That's a quote. But he took umbrage at Colin's claiming that the first season of any Star Trek is weak. So we could debate that, I think, but we'll let that one go.
I'll put that on the list for the next Grab Bag episode.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll have to watch the whole of Star Trek, every first season of Star Trek, plus every second season, just so that we can see whether it does improve in season 2. Have you got time for that, do you think?
I'll have it done by next week.
And then in relation to our Hugo episode, Tracy gave us a correction, saying, just a note about diabolical plots. the magazine that published Laser Eyes Ain't Everything by Effie Seberg. It isn't a new magazine. It's been published since 2015 and had another story nominated for several awards in 2020. I only quibble about this so that they get the credit they deserve. Love the podcast. Really enjoyed the quiz this time, although I did very poorly on it. So thank you, Tracy. And that brings us up to date. If anyone else would like to give us a correction or an update or add to the conversation, just go to our website, which is 101sf.blogspot.com, or find us on Facebook or Blue Sky as Science Fiction 101 Podcast.
We just talked about Andy Perry, so why don't we talk about science fiction in translation?
Let's do that. Because we've been looking at Small Planet, which is the Speculative Fiction in Translation magazine, issue 1, May 2026. And this is edited by Rachel Cordasco, and then there's a team of other people who edit and contribute to the magazine. And it's all about science fiction in translation. And what surprised me a little bit, I was half expecting it to be science fiction, but it's about science fiction in translation rather than the science fiction itself. So it's more of a journal, but that's okay. It's got various articles in it and a really good introduction to the issues around translated science fiction. So remind us, Colin, how did you first discover this magazine?
When Seth and I, and James too, went to the World Science Fiction Convention in Glasgow, Seth had come across this initiative to get a translated novel on the Hugos as a regular thing to vote on, as a way of exposing international science fiction to the field. Right now, there are some books that are translated into English, and they might make it onto a Hugo ballot and become part of the larger science fiction conversation, but it's very hit and miss. It compounds several problems. One is not very many things get translated into English, and then if you're not translated into English, people don't know about your work. And I had mentioned Andy Perry because Andy has this goal of trying to read a science fiction book from every country in the world.
Okay.
And I've lost track of where he is. He reads vociferously, dozens and dozens of books every year. So he's probably quite aware of the difficulty in finding translated works. So anyway, they're working on an initiative to make a new Hugo Award category for Best Translated Novel.
Yes.
And so it's been in the back of my mind, and it came across File 770 that the magazine was being published, and so I checked out the website and I checked out the magazine, and I thought, this would be a great thing to talk about and show our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear for everyone, it's a free magazine. It's a PDF. We'll give you a direct link for it. And it's got articles in this particular introductory issue, such as Science Fiction in Welsh, which opened my eyes to something that I didn't even know existed, frankly. There's an article on translating from Spanish, and that really, I think, was the one that got to the whole set of issues around translation as a practice, because being a translator, we might think is something that could be done purely by software these days. And I know I often translate documents just by running them through Google Translate. But that article, Translating from Spanish with Sue Burke by Cristina Gerardo, really is about the art of translation, about the importance of finding the just right word to convey a concept in the same way that the author originally intended. And then there's a piece in there about how ISFDB doesn't really reflect translators very well, which limits people's ability to research translated science fiction. There are some reviews in there, and there are some articles about forthcoming books and conventions and so on. So it's a bit of a grab bag of topics, but I found it fascinating. Yeah. Did you find it fascinating?
I did. I love anything that challenges my beliefs and uncovers hidden biases that I might have in my heart. For example, there are 2 different articles about translating from Spanish into English. And the second one is about a guy who writes haiku in Spanish. And my first thought was, you can't do haiku in Spanish. And then I realized haiku is a Japanese poetry form, why could we do it in English and not any other language?
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things that ever made me think about translation. Because I remember when, I don't know how old I was, maybe about 11 or 12 years old, when our English teacher introduced haiku to us and said, we're going to write some today, and here are the rules. This is the number of syllables. It's got to do this. It's got to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're told, well, this comes from Japanese. And you immediately think, whoa, if you just translate something from Japanese to English, it's not going to have the same number of syllables.
No.
So immediately you've got a challenge. And then you've got the whole translating of meaning, and then the translating of ambiguity, which is what poetry thrives on, really. So yeah, poetry and haiku, they must be the extreme limit of what is difficult to translate, and something that a machine cannot do.
Yeah, it would do a verbatim translation.
Yes.
Which misses all the things you just described.
Yes.
In the other article about translating from Spanish. So this is Sue Burke talking about why she works in Spanish. Spanish is enormously expressive, elegantly formal, voluptuously intimate, deliberately obtuse, beguilingly poetic, vulgar, oh, the many curse words, comic, colloquial, or straightforward. And there's all these nuances, which are called idiom, which don't translate well. Just thinking about one concept of love. In Latin, there are at least 3 words for love. I think there's actually maybe more like 5. In English, we have 1 to describe every one of them. So you lose all the nuance from the original.
Right. Yeah. And if you think back to stuff you yourself may have read in translation, it's like we're reading it through our fingers held up in front of our eyes or through Venetian blinds or something. We can't have a clear view of the original text. It's partially obscured. The ones I'm thinking of in particular, books that I read fairly early when I was discovering science fiction, Planet of the Apes by Pierre Boulle, which is from French, of course, and Solaris from Stanislaw Lem, which is from Polish, and later I discovered was translated into English via French. So that one has never had a fair crack of the whip because it's a translation of a translation. And in recent times it's been retranslated from the original Polish, so there is a better version out there now. But any version that is placed in front of us, we have no way of knowing whether it's a good translation. We just read it as a book and we say, oh, that book is bad or that book is good. But we don't know, we can't know whether we're judging the original author or we're judging the translator. And really, we're judging both together and it's all messed up.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important to know who's doing the translating, because if you find a good translator, you might want to read more of what they translate because they do the job so well.
Yes, and that, of course, is exactly the point of Monica Luzon's article, ISFDB and Translation, because she's looking at, well, suppose I find a translator whose work I admire and I want to see what else they've translated. I'll look them up on ISFDB and, oh, I can't, because ISFDB does not systematically list translators. Sometimes it mentions a translator, sometimes it doesn't. So there is no systematic method within ISFDB, which otherwise is a really useful research tool. So there's that issue of how do we track good translators and equally avoid the bad ones.
Yeah.
Or the ones who are perhaps more outdated. Their translations are no longer current for us, but feel a bit archaic. I think that's the case with Planet of the Apes or Monkey Planet. The standard translation is a bit clunky. It's a bit archaic. And one of the things I remember realizing or reading somewhere is that in French there is no distinction between monkey and ape. And that's why the book is sometimes called Monkey Planet and sometimes called Planet of the Apes. In English, there is a distinction. Monkey tends to suggest a thing with a tail. Ape tends to suggest a thing that is more human-like and has no tail. But in French, same word. That's my understanding of it anyway.
Wow.
So you immediately there, in the title of the book, you have an issue. What are you going to call the book? Which title captures the intent of the original author? And does it matter? I think it does.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the authors, there's the whole debate about death of the author.
Yeah.
But I think especially while the author is living, actually living, the intent matters. They would know. And that's part of the difficulty of reading a book. Every time you read a book, you bring your own perspective to it, from how to pronounce unusual names and words to how you emphasize words in the sentence and all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
the closer we can get to the author's original intent to know what they wanted to say, I think it's important.
Yes, yes. And in some ways, it's almost as if as you're reading a translated work, you need to see not just one word in the sentence that you're reading. You need to see a little cluster of possible words that the translator could have chosen, but this is the one they've actually chosen, so that you get a kind of a spectrum of the translation. That would be going too far, obviously, and it's not practical.
Yeah.
Some fantastic articles here that really open my eyes to this. And the one about Welsh, I didn't really know that there were any writers writing science fiction in Welsh. I think it's fair to say that everybody who speaks Welsh speaks English as well. There are many native speakers of Welsh, but because of the dominance of English throughout the United Kingdom, everybody who speaks Welsh really speaks English as well. So it's a language in an unusual position. But you then get to the issue of why would anyone choose to write in Welsh? And of course, the reason is the same reason anyone chooses to write in any language. It's the language they wish to express themselves in, or the language they can best communicate to their audience in. And so, yeah, it made me realise there are science fiction books in Welsh, but where would a reader find them? And that's all part of the big problem around translated fiction.
Yeah. It sounds like the speaking Welsh audience is so small that it's even hard, and maybe disparate, it's hard to get knowledge of books written in Welsh to them.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. There was the one science fiction book that was mentioned that was put up for an award. And in fact, I think it's a local British award. The National Estithoff, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. It looks like it's a Welsh award called the Prose Medal. And the quote is, "The judges declared themselves unable to make an award that year because Edith Olaf was obviously by far the best submission, but was so complex they felt it was unsuitable for the general reader," which is a pretty bold statement to make.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we'd like to recognize how great this is, except we don't think anybody would understand it. It's like, what if you challenged people to understand it and then recognize the greatness of the work in place? You know?
So I think it's fair to say that this magazine is a real eye-opener. So anybody who thinks they have a grasp of the science fiction field, most of us don't. We have a grasp at best of the field in our language or our languages. But anything outside of those, we're probably all of us in the dark. So translated science fiction is the way to go to sort of encourage people to understand other cultures, other writers, other voices, other ways of seeing the future, which is what science fiction often does, of course. And I was just trying to think of how many translated science fiction books I've read in my life, and it's probably about 6, maybe 10. It's not many.
Yeah. I was thinking about things I'd read for Take Me to Your Reader. So we read Rossum's Universal Robots.
Yes.
And it turns out that most of the performances of that play were based on a bad translation done in the early 1900s. And then we had seen a performance that was retranslated by a guy right here from Portland. And it was interesting to know this is closer to the original artist, the author's original version.
Yeah.
And then the Roadside Picnic by the Strigozzi brothers, which is the basis for the movie Stalker.
And of course, that opens up a whole other can of worms. Films in translation.
Oh, yeah.
Because there you can literally have two meanings going on at once, because you can have the original audio track plus English subtitles. So that is a form of translation, but it's a different form of translation because it's simultaneous, or as near as damn it. So that sounds like a cue to move on to La Jetée.
Oh, sure. We could talk about La Jetée.
Shall we do that?
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've covered La Jetée and 12 Monkeys on your other podcast.
We did.
But how did you first come across La Jetée? Was it because of 12 Monkeys?
It was only because of 12 Monkeys and the podcast. Many people probably don't know that the movie with Bruce Willis and Madeleine Stowe and Brad Pitt was based on this little short French animatic film from the 1960s. It was ranked the 50th best film of all time by the British Film Institute several years ago. And Brad Pitt won an award for Best Supporting Actor for a science fiction film. I think it was a Golden Globe. But yeah, it's all based on this little short French science fiction piece.
Yeah.
And it gets more and more unusual because it's not a classic film. It's what I call an animatic. And I think there are other words for it. But it's the idea that you're looking at a still film, a still image, and the camera pans, or it'll pan across the image or zooms in and out of the image. But that's the only motion. The actual thing you're watching isn't moving.
With the exception of a couple of shots, which if you blink, you miss anyway.
Yeah, there's a 4-second clip and I think a 10-second clip of the woman.
Yeah.
But it's this artistic, tight science fiction multiple time loop thing.
Yes.
I find it somewhat hard to describe, which is why I call it a thing.
Yeah. At the beginning of the film, when the title comes up on the screen, La Jetée, it doesn't say a film by Chris Marker. It says a photo-roman, which is a photo novel. So even he didn't really know what this was. But yeah, today, that technique of making a film out of still images is often an animatic, something like a storyboard. It's essentially a storyboard filmed with some sound to make it feel more like a film. Now, of course, Chris Marker didn't have that intention. For him, it's not a storyboard. It is the film. But the fact that he's used that technique immediately raises questions while you're watching it. And the first question is, why is it all photos? Why is it all stills? Is this just an arbitrary thing? Is it because he couldn't afford to film it? It might have been.
I think it was.
But I gather that was a motivating factor, and that he could afford a little tiny bit of 35mm moving film, and that's why there are 2 shots with movement. But no, you've also got to look at it from the artistic point of view. What's the intent of this artistically? And of course, the film can't tell you that. It's down for you to interpret that. I don't know how you feel about the technique, but for me, it makes it seem as if all memories, because that's what the film is about. It's about a man's recollection of something he witnessed in childhood, and then various things he experiences later. It's almost as if the film is saying that each memory is a snapshot, that we don't have a continuous recollection of the past, but instead we've just got these bursts of individual images that hold strong in our memory, while the motion between individual moments is lost to memory. Whether that's what the filmmaker intended, I don't know. But the very use of the technique has prompted an awful lot of speculation, because it's a film that's fascinated critics for years. But when you come down to it, it's a very simple science fiction story, isn't it? It's just this man remembers something from his childhood. There's an apocalypse. He is chosen to be sent back in time. And eventually he discovers what it was that happened when he was a child. And I don't know if we should do spoilers. Should we do spoilers?
Oh, we usually spoil. Yeah, why don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
Especially for films that are more than 60 years old. He discovers that the memory that he has from his childhood of a woman staring into space, she was looking at a man who's just been killed. And the man who's just been killed is him, the time traveller. But as a child, he didn't know that, of course, but now he does. So it is 12 Monkeys, really. What 12 Monkeys takes a couple of hours to do, La Jetée does in less than half an hour. But frankly, I think 12 Monkeys is a better film because it's more engaging, it's more conventional. It's not 100% conventional. It's more inviting to the average film goer, I think.
I felt that La Jetée, and so for those of you like me who don't speak French, La Jetée is literally the jetty, and it's referring to the old-fashioned 1960s style of a terminal, an outside terminal at an airport, back in the days where you would casually go to watch the planes take off and land, and you didn't have to go through security to get there. The science fiction of it is really interesting. There's actually, I think, 2 time loops that happen. There's the one that the man, that's all that we know from the story, is there's the man, the woman, the future people, the scientist. There's the loop the man experiences where he goes back and dies in front of a young version of himself. To me, the interesting science fiction is when he goes to the future. So after the apocalypse, humanity is failing, and they send him in time because they need resources, otherwise humanity is going to die out. So they try to send him to the past, and he falls in love with this woman and doesn't do his job, so they turn around and send him to the future. And in the future, he talks to some people, and he says, humanity is failing, we need your help, or we're going to die. And it's a really interesting conundrum for the people in the future, because the fact that they exist means that they helped the people in the past. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there to get help from.
Yeah.
So there's this inevitability of the time loop, which then is fulfilled at the end of the movie when he goes back and dies in front of his young self. But I think that's the coolest science fiction concept in there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just find the execution of the future bit is a bit clunky. The future people just sort of have strange things attached to their faces. I'm not sure whether they're fashion statements or whether they're some futuristic technology or whatever, but that just looks a bit cheap to me. So I've never really cared for that part of the film. I suppose taken as a whole, it does make it look as if all of time is locked into place. It's not a film where people go back in time in order to change things. It's more that they're going back and forward in time and finding out how things are crystallized into position. And I think, again, that's where the still images helps thematically, because the still images make it look as if these are frozen structures. So there's some fascinating things going on in there. How did you get on with the French? Did you watch the dubbed version or did you watch the subtitled version?
I watched the subtitled version, and I think to be 100% clear, the film is actually in French and German.
Yes.
And I speak a little bit of German, and I speak a little bit more than Spanish. And so there are times when I see translated works and I think, that's not what they said. But the German isn't translated at all. It just comes across as this foreign language muttering, murmuring. Most of the time they're counting numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the subtitle version, and I wondered about the accuracy of the translation. Am I really being told? Am I missing some subtlety or nuance that would be significant?
I think there are some moments where the subtitles are not 100% what is said, but nothing stuck out for me. The thing, when I watched it most recently, which was like yesterday morning, is the German bits, which I'd forgotten that it was German. I was just aware that there was some talking going on, and it's mostly whispered. And I was annoyed that the subtitles didn't go anywhere near that. And then it was only later that I realised, oh yeah, it's German. And the significance of there being no subtitles is that the character doesn't understand German. So to him, it's just sound.
You know, the future society is pretty draconian. In fact, at one point it says that they monitor your dreams, which is why they know that this guy keeps having this reoccurring image from his past, which he thinks will anchor him in the past well enough that he'll be a successful time traveler.
Yes.
But they experiment on people, and the range of effects were pretty bad across the board. I remember one very stark image of a man staring blankly into space, and he's cadaverous. You can see cheekbones and chin bones. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Or is that going too far?
Yeah, it's going a little too far. I appreciate the science fiction, and I'm starting to understand the artistry from watching enough artistic films. It's beginning to dawn on me that there are certain things that, due to my personal preferences and due to my interest and education, I just don't pick up. In the middle of Solaris, the movie, there is a direct reinterpretation of a famous painting. So the characters have this pose, and I had never taken art history, so I didn't pick up on it. Seth, who had taken art history, recognized it right away. And I think that's the danger and the challenge of doing films like this, is you do tend to limit your audience, but for the people that can understand it, you're going to give them a great experience.
Yeah. And there are hidden things in this film. There's a little section where they go and look at a cross-section of a tree, looking at the tree rings and saying, this is where I was born, where this tree ring is, and this is where you were born. And that is it's a quotation, really, from the Alfred Hitchcock film Vertigo, which has a similar scene.
Yeah.
So, again, if the viewer doesn't know that, it means nothing. But if you do know that, it suddenly makes you think, is there some connection here to Vertigo? And in Vertigo, the whole purpose of the film is that you've got James Stewart, who becomes obsessed with this woman that he's seen. And he keeps going to places like an art gallery, and he sees her sitting down and staring at a painting. And he follows her all over San Francisco because he becomes obsessed with this woman. La Jetée, because it's about this man who has this recurring memory of this woman that he saw as a child, and he has to go back and he keeps seeing her and trying to figure out what she's about. And the other thing that I read somewhere, might have been on Wikipedia, that some critic had pointed out that the title La Jetée is a pun in French for the phrase La Jetée, meaning there I was.
Oh.
Now, whether that was the intent, I don't know. But it may also be that actual structure of words. La Jetée is such a bizarre combination of words that no French speaker would ever really think that it meant there I was. But we can speculate.
That would be a far better description of the movie than the airport terminal one that I proposed.
The jetty, which I think has all the wrong connotations, really. It immediately makes you think of boats and water.
Yeah. I also remember there was several of the pictures are repeated.
Oh, yeah.
So when they're looking at the picture of the rings, there's the phrase, and I remember to write this down, it's fête apôstrée, if you spoke it with a more Spanish accent. And I think that translates to Feast of the Apostles.
Oh.
So I didn't do too much research into that, but yeah, it made me start to wonder, if you watch it multiple times and you try and pick up something from it every time you watch it, if it increases the value of it, where if you just sat through it one time to say, yeah, I've got the plot, but you don't get all the other things from it if you're missing something.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've watched it countless times over the years because I used to use it in my teaching, because I taught film for 25 years. And it's interesting from a number of perspectives if you're teaching film. One is that it's an unusual way of making a film. But the other one is that it shows a technique that people may have never considered. And if you're teaching filmmakers, you want them to consider all of the techniques available to them. And so showing people something like that, they suddenly go, oh, I never thought that you could make a film using that method. And it sort of opens up possibilities for them as filmmakers. And the other thing is that Chris Marker is a filmmaker of reputation beyond this one film. He made other films that are similarly experimental in various ways, often to do with memory. So it lends itself to various teaching moments, I think. So that's why I've seen it so many times. But I haven't seen it with fresh eyes for a long time. It's probably about 10 years since I've sat down and watched it just for the entertainment of it. And I decided this time that, no, I think I prefer 12 Monkeys, thank you.
It's very slowly paced. I think it's really a 10 or 12 minute YouTube video that is expanded out in time so that you have time to breathe and think through all the things that are happening versus just experience the plot of the movie, which is really small, really short.
I think it's the film equivalent of a short story, really.
Oh, totally.
So it has some value in that regard. It therefore is probably the highest ranked science fiction film in the BFI list of a film that is equivalent to a short story. There's nothing else in that top 50, I don't think, that would be equivalent to a science fiction short. So
probably not.
Special.
Yeah. I had actually, when our kids were younger, we were big fans of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original, the animated one. And my mom had come across a version that was an animatic, and it's narrated by Walter Matthau.
Oh, wow.
And so it's really weird going from Thurl Ravenscroft and it's not Bela Lugosi, is it? I can't remember the original narrator for the animated one.
Oh, is it Boris Karloff?
It is Boris Karloff, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to go from that to Walter Matthau's New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn style accent was pretty jarring. But it was an animatic, and it was just showing you pages from the book, and he would be reading along with it and talking, and it would slide or zoom. And
there should be more of it, more still images in film. I'd vote for that. When I was little, there used to be a very primitive TV show called Jackanory. It was for children, where you would have some celebrity would read a story from a book. They were really reading off a teleprompter, but they held the book as if they were reading from a book. And they would have illustrations, just sketches that were drawn to intersperse with the narration. A very simple method of making TV, very cheap, but it was really good when you were little. So very simple methods can work. But we're trained to expect things to be dynamic and have lots of movement and explosions and fast action and all of that. And I like it whenever there is something that reminds us that it doesn't have to be that way.
Especially when it tells a great story and the visual medium enhances it. I'm thinking in particular of a group of, it's like a full cast audiobook where they perform works that have come into the public domain because of age. And it's illustrated with sometimes black and white, sometimes color images. I don't even know if they're working on anything new right now.
Yes, you're calling back to RUR again, because Planet Zoom players who do that very thing that you've just described, we're currently working on RUR, but it's going to take ages to complete because we discovered that when you use the correct translation of RUR and you do the entire thing, it's about 4 hours long. It's enormously long. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a prologue, which is about 35 minutes performed. Then there are 3 acts. It's way too long. I'm not surprised that when it was first translated into English, it was reduced in length to make it more manageable. And the thing that struck me, we were recording Act 2 the other day, and at the end of Act 2, a character literally says something like, "It's over, the end." And then the curtain comes down and it's the end of Act 2. And I said to the rest of the group, if you did this in front of an audience, a lot of people would get up and leave at this point because they would assume that it's finished because this character's just said the end. But there's a whole other act still to come. So
crazy.
Anything else on La Jetée?
No.
Shall we move on to Resurrection?
Yeah.
Which is La Jetée to extreme, isn't it? It's a foreign language film.
Yes.
Subtitled into English. Experimental.
Definitely.
Using unusual techniques in places. Remind me, how did you first come across Resurrection?
So one great way to get me out of my comfort zone is to commit to going to something. And for me, that something, in this case, is the OMSI Science Fiction Film Festival. So to get to the break-even point on a season pass, you have to see a certain number of films. And so Tim and I, whenever the season comes out, we look at it and we say, okay, this is a definite one. Yeah, we've seen this one too many times. We can skip it. And then we get to the foreign films. And there was this one movie called Resurrection. And I checked it out. It was from 2025 from a noted Chinese director. And it was pretty well regarded. It won the special prize at the 2025 Cannes Film Festival. And so we thought, yeah, let's sit down and watch it. At that point, I had seen several art style films and I was a little skeptical, but I was immediately taken in this first act where all of these early 1900 eras methods of filmmaking are literally demonstrated for you in front of you as part of the movie. And I don't even know the right names for them, but there are some fake stop motion things where a hand comes in from off screen and adjusts something and then pops back out. There are, I call it a layered or windowed technique, where there's something being projected behind the film. I'm thinking of the opening scene where they're looking down into the opium den with all the people. And there's people playing, but they're just cardboard cutouts, but you can hear all the music. And then behind you, above and to the right, there's like a bar scene with lots of people walking around and moving, but it's a different color tone than all the rest of the things in front of you. And so you know, like, oh, this is a projection from something else. Those are actual people on a set. This is a contrived thing. And then as the movie progressed, I began to recognize there were multiple things happening in every section, ending with a 20-minute long shot. And if you're not familiar with that technology, listeners, what it means is there were no cuts. The camera is hot the whole time for every single element, every pan, every move. Scenery changes are done by going to different parts of a town. So you go into this room and building, and you go into a different room in the same building, and you go out and you go down the street. And I did some reading on Wikipedia. It took them 3 months to film that. Just because if you make one mistake at the 18-minute mark in your 20-minute shot, you got to go all the way back to the beginning and try again. So
yeah. Do you believe it, though? Do you
Yeah.
believe there are no cuts in there?
I do believe there are no cuts.
Because I think there are a couple.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I'm watching this and realizing these things that are happening, that it's not only the science fiction exploration of the Chinese senses, because there's 6 Chinese senses and there's these 6 scenes, but this demonstration of a love of the making of film. And I'm thinking, I really want Phil to watch this and to tell me and explain to me the things I don't recognize or don't know how to talk about well.
Yeah.
So
I think what we should say, for the benefit of people who have not seen Resurrection, what we can't really do is give you a plot summary, because it's not a single story of a film. I suppose let's try and think of an example. It's what we might call a portmanteau film that's made up of a series of separate stories. You could think of the old British film from the 1940s, Dead of Night. You could think of Twilight Zone, the movie. You could think of The Illustrated Man, a 1969 film.
yes,
So any film that is made up of a series of shorts bolted together. There is a flow from one to the other, but more or less these are 4 short films or 5 short films joined together. It's pointless to try and summarize the plot, because I don't think that's why you would watch this film. I think you would watch this film to be visually impressed and sound impressed as well. Each section of the film has a different aspect ratio. I think the first section of the film is in 4:3. So if you're watching it on a TV screen, you'll have black bars down the sides of the image, and the main image is in the center. The next section is in a widescreen mode. So you're on a TV, you'll have black bars at the top and bottom. Of course, on a cinema screen, there's no concept of bars. It's just how big the image looks on the screen as a whole. I've forgotten where it goes after that, but I do know that the continuous take that you referred to in the more or less the final section of the film, that is full screen. If you're watching on a TV screen, it's a full 16:9 image.
Mm-hmm.
So the aspect ratio is varying through the film. And where there are constants is there's an actor who is in every piece.
yes.
And what about the supporting cast? I wasn't sure whether they were recurring in the various films or whether they were different people each time.
I think they're different people each time. And as in the master plot, so it's a lot like a fix-up novel. There's all these individual stories, and the monster, the deliriant, occurs
Yes.
and it's the same actor through the whole thing. The thing that might help is this little 2-minute blip that you get, which is that in the future, people have realized that you can be immortal if you give up your dreams. And there are some people that refuse to stop dreaming, and they're called deliriants. And one deliriant does his dreaming in the medium of film. And there are people tasked with hunting down deliriants because they're bad for society. And as the hunter pulls the deliriant out of his first dream, he begins to die. And to help him die, she leads him through all these other scenes.
Yes.
So he's progressively dying through all these things too. So there's that aspect.
So shall we try and characterize the various stories that we've got? We've got the kind of the framing story, as you say, which is about this monster who basically you can open up his back and you can put a spool of film in his back and it will play, and that will be his memories or his dreams or whatever. So that's in this sort of framing story. And the style of that at the beginning of the film is like expressionist cinema of the 1920s or 1910s. So very early cinema. And a lot of that is done with physical sets. The camera is constantly moving through sets, and these sets are sometimes rotating. So a wall will spin around to reveal another room behind the wall.
Yeah.
But it's all done physically, and you can imagine that you could be there and physically see this happening. Whether it was really done that way entirely or whether there is some other effects work going on, I don't know, but it looks pretty seamless to me. But I did notice at the end, there's a tremendously long list of effects artists in this film. And so it can't all have been done in camera. And some of this is done after the fact, but that's okay. The second bit is sort of in a film noir style and suddenly brings in sound. That's the thing that I noticed most about that. The first section it's not silent, but it's music. on the soundtrack and very little in terms of real sound.
Or spoken word.
That's right, yes. There are sometimes little punctuations, so somebody, I'm just making this up now, but somebody will tap a thing and the musical soundtrack will have a kind of a tapping sound as part of the score, but there's no sound effect as such. When we get to the second section, we're in this film noir setting, and now all of a sudden we've got sounds as well as music. And it really hits you in the face when the sound first comes in, not because it's loud, but because it's there for the first time.
Yeah.
So that was quite striking. And I can't really remember what the plot of that was about.
They're searching for a song and a person.
Oh,
and
yes.
It's in a suitcase.
Yes.
And so they're trying to find the suitcase, but then it turns out the suitcase is not a thing, it's a person.
Yeah.
And somebody has to deafen himself in order to hear a sound to trace it down.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
It is.
And that segment opens up with somebody stitching their chest. There's a big vertical wound.
Oh, yeah. But the whole thing about it being about sound is there's our clue of one progression that's going on through the film. We started off with something that was purely visual, so sight. Now we're into a section which is still visual, but it's got strong sound elements. And as you say, this character stabbing himself in the ear. So this is about the sense of sound. Mm-hmm. And then it moves on and on through the film. The piece that I personally enjoyed the most was there's a section where the deliriant is a kind of a con artist.
Oh, that was a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got this little girl who he recruits to help him with these magic tricks. So the little girl pretends that she can read cards that are hidden from her, but in fact the man is using his psychic sense to read the cards, and then he's just communicating through gestures for her to pick up on. So it's a really nicely set up little con trick that they do, and beautifully shot. It's really colourful, but in many ways it's the most conventional part of the film, I thought.
From a film standpoint, yes. And if I remember right, the theme of that one was scent. She's smelling the cards.
That's it. She smells the cards.
And then it ends, what I think, with this beautiful piece where this man is searching for people with special powers because his daughter, who had died, had written him a letter, and all he has are the ashes of the letter, and he wants to know what her last words to him were. And she reads, presumably, this letter, and it's really touching and moving. I love that part.
And yet, of course, we don't know if she's just making it up or if somehow it is being read from the thing.
Yeah.
But she's proven herself to the man, and therefore she is trusted. And then there's the one about the monk, and that is to do with taste, because there's something rather distasteful that happens within the story, which is to do with something being bitter. And I'd rather leave that to the listener to discover when they see the film, because I think it's amusing and horrible, but entertaining all at the same time. But that whole section, it was like watching a Tarkovsky film. It seemed to be very slow, very brooding, people sitting around just thinking and not necessarily doing anything. And in the extra on the DVD, the director does talk about Tarkovsky being one of his influences.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, this is the Tarkovsky section then. What else was there?
I thought that the vampire section was a one-shot, a long shot.
Yes.
And you think there's a cut. There might be a cut toward the very end when they're going down to the docks, but do you think there are other cuts? And where are they?
I couldn't swear that there are other cuts, but there are opportunities for cuts in there. And this is the secret. If you're trying to do something as a long continuous take, you want to break it down so that you don't have to go back to position one if you can avoid it. So let's say it's a 20-minute section, you probably want to put some breakpoints in every 5 minutes or so that the most you're going to have to do is rewind by 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I did notice a number of instances where there were opportunities to cut. Whether they actually cut or not, I do not know. But for example, there's a bit where a guy puts this suitcase on a table, lifts the lid of the suitcase and turns it around. And while that suitcase is turning around, that could easily be concealing a cut. And there are various moments like that. There are scenes where people go through a doorway, and just as the camera is passing the door frame, there's your opportunity for a cut. Okay. All you need to do, if you are putting a cut in there, is just use the same camera movement in at the end of shot 1 and at the beginning of shot 2. And when you cut them together, because of the movement, nobody will see that there's a cut because it will be blurred.
Yeah.
So I saw a number of opportunities for cuts, but whether they actually cut, I don't know. I hope they didn't, but if they've got any sense, they would have built in those opportunities. Because otherwise, as you say, got to restart the whole thing. And since it's at night and some of it's outdoors, imagine having to reset. You'd have a limited number of times that you could reshoot because the light would change, the sun would come up.
Yeah. Or the moon will be in a different position on those days. And...
yeah. But it is impressive. But it always, with single take scenes, it always makes me think, who is this for? Is the viewer conscious of this? How many people watching this will notice that this is done in a single shot? And if nobody's going to notice, why are you bothering? If everybody's going to notice, are you taking them out of the story and you're now making them think about the technique and they're not concentrating on the story anymore? So it's a very risky thing to do, but very elegantly done in this instance, I think.
I definitely got taken out as I would come to the top and look at what I was looking at and analyzing versus being into the plot and the action at all times. The things that I recognized, the forced perspective shots in the beginning and the stop motion and the layered window technique in the one shot. And then I started looking for it. It was almost like a scavenger hunt during the movie. And I enjoyed that.
Yeah. And I think it's something that lends itself to rewatching because of that. Because the first time you watch it, you want to immerse yourself in the story and just go with the flow. But then once you've noticed all of these strange things that the film does, you want to go back and see how they did it. So that then leads you to your second viewing. In fact, I started the film twice. The first time I watched it, I got through the first section and halfway into the second section. And I got a bit fidgety because I kept thinking, how did they, that bit earlier, how was that done?
Yeah.
And I had to, there's nothing for it. I'm going to have to start again. So I started again on a different day, but I'm sure I will come back to this film again and watch it in pieces, or maybe fast forward looking for things that I want to examine more closely. But yeah, it's a very good film. I've looked at some of the reviews, and on the whole, it's got very positive reviews. Most of the reviews are based on things that the filmmaker or the publicists say that the film is about. So lots of people are saying, oh, it takes us through the history of Chinese cinema in 2.5 hours. I don't know if it really does do that. I think it uses a number of techniques that remind you of different stages of film, but I don't think it's very systematic in doing that. The one thing that I think it is systematic about doing is using a different sense for each of these stories.
Yeah.
That is pretty solid for me all the way through. But it's a good film, and everyone should see it at least once, I would say.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. Oh, and once again, did you watch it with subtitles or was it dubbed?
Subtitles.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I don't think there was a dubbed version on the Blu-ray that I have. It only had the standard Chinese audio track and then a choice of languages for the subtitle translations. Of course, I watched the English subtitles.
Yes.
Do we have a grab bag of a quiz?
I do. So let me give a little bit of background on this while I open up my notes. Mm-hmm. Hank Green, the noted YouTuber, has a video blog with his brother. They've done it on and off for years. They have the company Complexly, which does SciShow and crash course videos if you've used those while you were going to school or just wanting to pick up knowledge about a certain topic. And Hank has his own individual channel, which is very eclectic. And a number of weeks ago, he went and ranked fake words from science fiction and how well he thinks they work in talking about the concepts that they're supposed to communicate. Right. And he gave them all a rank from S, which was like superb, A, B, C, D, F. And I think they're like over 25 or 30 words. I have picked out only 12 of them. And this is what your goal is. Your goal is I'm going to tell you a word and I want you to tell me either the author or the work that it comes from. And for bonus points, explain it. And I have broken the words into 4 categories. So words from movies, words from television, words from books, and then lastly, words from comic books.
Okay.
Okay. Your first word is mimetic polyalloy.
Oh my goodness. Surely that's 2 words, isn't it?
Yes, they could be short phrases.
Give me it again. Mimetic polyalloy.
It's from a movie.
From a movie. Mimetic polyalloy. The only thing that it conjures up to me is Terminator 2.
That's right.
Where you have this Terminator that can turn into a metal thing and then back again. Yeah. Good.
All right. The next phrase is flashy thingy.
Flashy thingy. And this is from a film again.
Yes, this one and the one after this, they're all from films.
It sounds British. Is it British?
No.
Oh, okay. Flashy thingy. It's got to be something comedic, surely. Is it Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
No, but thinking in the right area.
Back to the Future.
This movie came after Back to the Future.
After that.
You want me to drop you an actor's name?
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, Men in Black.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Remember the flashy thingy?
Yes.
Look right here, please.
Yes.
Well, it actually has a formal name, but when Will Smith suspects that Tommy Lee Jones has used it on him, he calls it the flashy thingy.
Yeah.
All right. The next one, you should knock this one out of the park. The flux capacitor.
Is that from Back to the Future?
That is. All right. Well done. You're 3 for 3 so far. We're moving on to television. The first phrase is jump gate.
Jump gate. Could be a number of things. It's not Stargate, is it?
No.
Because that would be Stargate. No, I can't get it.
If I told you it was from a television series in the 1990s.
No, can't get it.
By J. Michael Straczynski.
Babylon 5?
It is Babylon 5.
Ha ha!
Yes.
How did I not know that?
The next phrase is black oil.
Ooh, I need a clue.
It's from a Fox television series.
Doesn't really help.
It's from a television series in the 90s that may have had content from UFOs.
Content from UFOs. Black oil.
Black oil.
1990s. I'm stumped.
The truth is out there.
Oh, it's the X-Files.
It is, yeah.
What's black oil then?
So the black oil was one of the aliens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was actually, there's the overarching mythology for the whole thing. Instead of the monster of the week, there's the cover-up with the cigarette-smoking man. Yeah. So the black oil is a monster, and it shows up in several places.
I see. I think I gave up too early on the X-Files. I think I watched the first couple of seasons and then drifted away.
That would be easy to do. Okay. Yeah. The next one is sonic screwdriver.
Oh, well, that's Doctor Who.
Yep. And the Night Industries 2000.
It's got to be Knight Rider.
That is. All right. That completes the television series of phrases. We're now moving to books. Okay. So the next 3 will all be from books. The first word is Ansible.
Ansible is a faster-than-light communications device, which comes from Ursula K. Le Guin.
You're spot on. Good job.
But is it from a particular book?
It is.
Is it The Lathe of Heaven?
No.
Is it the other one?
The other one? The Left Hand of Darkness?
Yes.
No, it's from the third book. Rocannon's World?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
When I saw this word, I thought about Orson Scott Card's Ender series, because the Ansible is used for instantaneous communications controlling the ships, but then actual light speed travel takes quite a bit longer.
Yeah.
All right. Psychohistory.
It's a science in the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. And this next one is lysine contingency.
Lysine contingency. Oh, my word. Lysine. Isn't lysine a cleaning product?
Lysol is a cleaning product.
Yes, Lysol.
Yes. Lysine is a peptide required for the production of certain vitamins in mammalian and reptilian physiology.
Oh. And what was the phrase again? Lysine?
Contingency.
And this is from a book?
Yes. The book was adapted into a very popular movie, which became a movie series.
Jurassic Park.
That's exactly right. This part was not adapted, but it was
Aha.
what the scientists designed so that if the dinosaurs ever got loose, they would not have the ability to manufacture their own lysine, and so they were dependent on the scientists and the caretakers to give this to them so that they would, not die. Interestingly enough, when you read the book, it talks about a series of chicken farm raids in Central America because chicken is naturally high in lysine. So the velociraptors that have gotten out are surviving by eating chickens.
Yeah.
I love that part of it. Okay, the next two are words from comic books.
Okay.
Comic books. The first one is adamantium.
Adamantium. It's presumably some all-powerful substance, or maybe it's the weakness of somebody, just like kryptonite is Superman's weakness. I mean, I'm covering for the fact that I have no idea. I know everyone listening to this is screaming right now because they know what it is, and I don't.
So the metal comes from the same series of comic books, the same manufacturer of comic books as the famous metal vibranium.
Doesn't help.
That doesn't help.
Let me guess. DC rather than Marvel.
It could be one of those.
Oh,
Which one do you think it is?
DC.
It's actually Marvel.
Oh.
Yeah, so vibranium or adamantium is an incredibly hard steel, and the character Wolverine, his bones are laced with adamantium.
Okay.
Which gives him toughness and resilience and other things.
Okay.
Okay, the last one is neuralizer.
Can you spell that for me?
Neuralizer.
Neuralizer. And this is from a comic.
It is. The hint I'll give you is we've actually already talked about this.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't think of anything we've talked about that could be a neuralizer.
Oh, it erases people's memories.
Oh, I see. Well, that's because you used the blinky thing earlier on.
The flashy thingy.
The flashy thingy. Men in Black.
Yes. It comes from Men in Black the comic.
Of course.
I was going to ask you about things from the Judge Dredd comic series because we're actually preparing for another Take Me to Your Reader podcast, but they aren't super popular movies, and the comic strips have been out of publication for quite a while. So,
yeah, I've never seen a Judge Dredd comic, and I've seen the first film, but not my thing.
No.
So how did I do? I dread to think.
You got, I believe, 9 out of 11.
Oh, really?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, 9 out of 12.
Okay. That sounds a lot more than I remember getting, but I'll take it.
I will drop you a link so that you can post it in the show notes if people want to go and see the whole list of words. It's an interesting thing that he's doing because he's not just talking about the technology that the words represent. He's talking about how efficiently the word used to describe that technology communicates what it does and how it has or hasn't entered popular culture.
Yeah, I suppose lots of things from science fiction have entered popular culture. Everyone knows what a robot is. Everyone knows what a time machine is.
Transporter. So he didn't do Star Trek or Star Wars. He stayed away from the super popular things. But he did go comic book. He talked about Cixin Liu books. Talked about Dark Forest, which is the title of a book in this concept that there are lots of alien civilizations, but none of them leak electromagnetic signals like we do, because if you knew they were there, you would attack them to defend yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for the tough quiz. It'd be interesting to know how our listeners did. I bet everyone did better than me.
We'll see. Do you have some past, present, and future items?
I do. I've got here something that is very topical. In about a month's time as we record this, the 4th and 5th of August 2026. Does that date mean anything to you, Colin?
Was that when we were supposed to meet together in London 2 years ago?
No, it's nothing to do with that. It's a famous short story, the Ray Bradbury story There Will Come Soft Rains, which is a chapter in the Martian Chronicles. In the fictional world, it has a date attached to it of 4th of August 2026. This is the one about the robotic house that carries on functioning long after the people have been killed in the atomic war.
Right.
So we've reached the fictional date that story is set in. So it's a past item, very nearly a present item.
Yeah. Last month, Brandon Sanderson gave an Oxford lecture for the Tolkien Society, and it's a discussion of what is fantasy. And I really enjoyed it because that's one thing we talk about is what is science fiction. And let me give you a quote from there just as a teaser, because I think it's worth your time to sit and listen to the entire hour-long lecture. And that is that science fiction is the realm of the plausible, and fantasy is the realm of the impossible. So if you want to see what Brandon Sanderson's take on fantasy is, you can go listen to it.
I've got a couple of future items as well. Coming out actually next month in August 2026 is quite a mammoth book from Robert J. Sawyer, which is called Sawyer on Science Fiction, which is a collection of virtually everything he has ever written about science fiction. So essays, book reviews, and that kind of thing. And I chose to order the ebook version, partly because it's cheaper than the physical copies, but also because it sounds like it is a massive book. And I think an ebook is going to be much more manageable than a doorstop of a book. But it made me think which other science fiction writers have written extensively about science fiction. And the only ones I could think of who'd done books on the subject are Isaac Asimov, who did one called Asimov on Science Fiction, and the other one is Robert Silverberg, who we've talked about before, did a book called Science Fiction 101, and that we should review it on this show. But there may be others as well, but those are the ones that I could think of. But Sawyer's book looks like it's going to eclipse those in terms of page count.
I know that John Scalzi has published selections from his blog, but they're not necessarily about science fiction. They're more about related topics and his opinion on things. And well, speaking of Robert J. Sawyer, I follow on social media a lot of my favorite authors and Robert J. Sawyer because I enjoyed the Downloaded and I really liked our talk with him. And he made a posting yesterday saying that he had broken one of his rules and was reading one of his books before it was 40 years old. And the book is called The End of an Era. And so I went out and fetched a copy of it and started reading it. And then I realized he hadn't said why he'd broken his rule. And so I posted this as a comment on his post. And he wrote back and he says, maybe we'll find out soon.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. If this is an adaptation, the book is interesting. It's got some good science fiction in it. It's got some good plot development. It's got some character things going on in it. I think I understand the reveal that's going to happen toward the end of the book, but I'm going to read to the end of the book and find out.
Maybe he's had an idea for a sequel.
Oh.
So I've got another future item, which is another book coming out in October, which is by Lee Fratantuono, and it's a book called The 80s Twilight Zone. Now, the Twilight Zone has been going forever, it seems, but really, you've got the original Twilight Zone, which sort of ran for just a few years back in the late 50s, early 60s. Mm-hmm. And then it was revived in the 80s and sort of kept coming back at various points. But the 80s Twilight Zone is somewhat different and somewhat special because it was the first time it had been revived. And they had some really good writers working on that particular version. And it did have some great episodes. It had some not very good ones as well. I think it's overlooked. It's been left in the shadows. So it'd be interesting to see a book about the subject.
Yeah.
Which I am told is a good book by somebody who's actually read the thing. So we will see.
Okay. Scientific American. Not something that we talk about very much in the realm of science fiction. But they have launched a summer reading challenge. It actually started last month, June 1st, but you can subscribe to their newsletter for the reading recommendations, some of which are science fiction, and they have a bingo card, which I thought was kind of nifty. One of the elements that you can do is read a book with a science protagonist. It's encouragement for reading at the adult level. I think we do that a lot for children and young adults, but do we do it for adults, mature adults?
No, we don't. I'm in a couple of book groups, and there are quite a few of those around in the world, not necessarily to do with science fiction, but I think book groups are a good way to encourage adults to read more widely.
Yeah.
So I'm all in favour of those. But yeah, you're right. Any more past, present or future items?
Not from me.
No, nor from me. So I think for now, we're done.
Thanks for listening.
We're Phil Nichols and Colin Cuskey.
Our music is from Purple Planet at purpleplanet.com.
Please visit our website at 101sf.blogspot.com
where you can support us by buying us a coffee.
And you can find us on Facebook and Blue Sky. So see you next time.